Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the pork queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and today I'm joined with Madam Mayor Connie Boesen. Last time you were in here, you were Councilwoman Boesen running for mayor, so obviously congratulations on winning the election. It's a big deal.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me.
So lots to go through. I know you have big priorities, and I will say there's some background here. I think the timeline might be a little off. I'm going to hear from my mother after this uploads. I think you were my first job working for Appalicious, or one of my first jobs. One of them was a bookstore, one of them was Appalicious. I think you were the very first job I had. I could be wrong, but anyway. So there's definitely a lot of bias here because I owe everything to Connie Boesen.
I gave you your start. I gave you your working standard. Yes, I have had a lot of Appalicious recruits through the years, and I say someday we should have one big reunion at a fair.
I like that idea.
Yeah, I think we should.
The first questions are really, because now you're mayor, so I have to ask you tough questions now. The first one is, when are all the streets of Des Moines going to be aligned with apple trees?
Probably won't be happening. So that won't be happening. I don't think everybody wants apples on their yards. But yeah, so, and I've been asked by numerous people, will I continue with Appalicious? And yes, Appalicious will continue.
Good, that's a relief. So I guess that concludes our interview today. Thank you so much for coming in.
That was an easy one.
Yeah, that was easy. So you lived at the fairgrounds for a while, I believe. You were East High grad. So have you ever moved out of Des Moines in your entire life?
No, I've never been out of Des Moines. I did live over by Drake when my former husband was in law school, 3 years, and that's the only time I've lived off the east side.
Yeah, I've been telling a lot of people that she's lifelong Des Moines person. She cares a lot about the city, so obviously we're very grateful that you're going to be the mayor, and I'm looking forward to a lot of big things you're going to do. But you obviously have a lot to do. You ran on economic development. That was your big thing, and I remember you saying we want Des Moines to be open for business. That was your big thing. So you're coming in. And this isn't obviously Frank County's fault, just to clarify. I'm not going to throw him under the bus at all. He's a good dude. But you're coming in at just a really tough spot because we have this downtown exodus. Wells Fargo left, Nationwide left. Not left everything, but they are
scaling back.
Yeah, scaling back substantially. And I think the partnership also has some numbers about declining walking traffic, 1 million in open space downtown, empty parking lots. And now Maverick, of course, has purchased Come and Go. So I don't think they've announced anything. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, are they going to be staying in downtown with that new beautiful building, or is that going to go for sale?
Well,
obviously, to clarify, they have not said anything.
I think Maverick is going over to another building. Mm-hmm. So they are staying downtown. I've heard there's another company maybe possibly coming downtown. So I look at, whenever you have obstacles like this, I come out of retail. So I say it's opportunity. Right. Instead of maybe having one business of 500 people, if we could have 10 businesses of 25 to 50, that way you can bridge that gap so if somebody leaves, it's not such a big downfall.
Right.
Some of the buildings are being converted to housing. I know Rouen 2 is being looked at to be converted to more apartments, and there's a huge need still for more housing downtown. And it's a bridge of ages, too. It's not just the younger people coming in and wanting to be in downtown, but it's also the older people wanting to get out of their homes and the convenience of walking. You can walk to the Civic Center, you can walk to restaurants, you can walk to the event center. So I think that we're seeing still a good demand for housing, and I think that some of those empty parking lots, I say it's opportunity.
Right. But
especially the ground ones that we could maybe redevelop into more housing.
Yeah, and you mentioned the walking, which is a big deal. Like when my wife and I travel around, one of the locations we pick for hotels is, can we walk to a bunch of cool stuff nearby? That's like the number one thing. And so I would say Des Moines, though, is in a position where it's struggling with that, because if you do move downtown, what are you going to walk to? Like we've lost a lot of restaurants, and some of those businesses have closed. So it's kind of like you can't attract the restaurants and the businesses without the people, but you can't attract the people with the restaurants. So how, as a mayor, how do you affect that?
Well, I think there still is very easily walkable areas to the East Village. There's some great restaurants here. There's still great restaurants downtown. I think more opening up. So I think we do have, and as you bring more traffic, and if you look at that whole area south of MLK, that area is growing. You have the Market District. There's a complete development they're planning with. There's going to be a new park. There'll be more housing off of the East Village. So I think that there's still a great opportunity. We're looking at, the soccer stadium and some of those things, amenities. So even within downtown Des Moines, there's still a lot to walk to. You can bike to you can get on trails and go for miles.
That's true.
So I think that we really do have that walkability, and there are things to go to. So I would have to say it's still very, downtown still has a great opportunity.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I completely agree with that. It's just it's a tough spot. And I honestly don't think, I know a lot of people predict the whole everyone's going to be working from home thing. I don't buy into it at all. And the numbers actually prove that out. People are going back to offices. So I do hope to see some other companies moving into Des Moines to take up that 1 million in space. My word.
Well, I think that people, are seeing, some of the companies are saying come back. I don't think will it always be the same? Maybe not. But I think it's important for people to have that working environment. And I do know that I think it's not only good for their business, but I think it's also good for people to get out and interact with their, fellow workers, or just be in an area where you can go to the restaurants, where you can go out and about. So I think I'm positive about it. I think you have to be optimistic that will it be the same? No, but it makes you get creative.
Yeah, I mean, so 30 days, it will be this week. I think February 1st is your first 30 days. So obviously it's not fair to hold you to hardly anything at this point. It's going to take a while to make all these changes you want to make. But one thing that I think probably has happened, because I know your schedule's been incredibly booked, is you have mentioned that you want to hear from like developers and real estate agents and construction companies. Like, why is it, what could be better about working with Des Moines? Now, I know you're doing a listening thing right now. I know you're collecting all that data, but can you share any preliminary stuff? Any just like anecdotes or what people have been telling you?
Well, one thing too, I know that our economic development director, Cody Christensen, met with a lot of the developers, and what are the things in our code? Because we changed codes, and we were hearing a lot. So really, what is the impact? Some of it's a learning curve. So there will be some modifications coming forward, and some of it's just common sense changes. And how do we look at it? We don't have to lower standards, but what is it? The obstacles. One thing that we are doing is, and I don't think anyone is. They're doing interviews. One thing that when I was running, I had 3 or 4 different small businesses contact me, and the process to start up a small business is complex and somewhat difficult. It's kind of like you don't know what you don't know. So I have asked that we have somebody in economic development that helps shepherd people through start to finish. So you don't get bounced from one place to another place, and that you can have a continuity, and so that you know what you need to do. And how can we stage that in different levels? So they are going to be hiring somebody to do that. So that's was one of my first order of priority, that we need to help small businesses get open, because those are the companies or the businesses that are coming into Des Moines. If you look at the area, the East Village has started with small businesses wanting to be creative and coming into an environment. We have businesses in, whether it be the Highland Park neighborhood, which we're seeing a resurgence of new businesses coming up to that area.
Right, it's a really exciting space.
Right, so it's fun to see, and how do we develop that more and make it an easy process?
Now, when you talk about small businesses, I think you're talking about like actual brick and mortar kind of things. Because for me, I just started a small business out of Des Moines. And I just, filed my paperwork with the Secretary of State. It was over.
Right,
so you're talking about moving into buildings and
so
all
what
what
are our codes? If you do a 50% improvement, then it triggers this, and this. Do we need everything done at this time? And what is it that we expect you to do? So if you need a fire permit, how do you coordinate all those things together so that it's a easier process? Because if you're a small business, being a small business owner, you're trying to do everything. You're it. So we just need to make sure that we help and create and foster an environment that makes it easier, because there's some great small businesses that now maybe have 1 or 2 different places, 3 different places, and it's you see what's gone on in some of the areas of the city, and it's great diversity of businesses, and I think that we want to continue that.
When we were doing our renovation, we live in Des Moines on the east side, as you know, and when we were doing our renovation, one of our contractors that was helping us build, I'm not going to go into the story. I don't want to give too much clues, so I don't want to call this person out, but I was at their shop, and I don't know how we got on it, but the city of Des Moines, and this was almost a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago at this point, I think. But they said something about, the city of Des Moines is awful to work with. I would never put a business there. But he had strategically put his business right over the border, like I think probably a couple 100 feet from the Des Moines line, because he wanted to be near Des Moines but didn't want to be in Des Moines, which I thought was hilarious. But I've heard that, like when a family friend was like doing an expansion project, their contractor or their general contractor kept going to the city of Des Moines to get various permits or various things, and he would come back and say, they denied it today, so I'll talk to this other person tomorrow to get it approved. And I'm like, they didn't change any plans or anything. It's just a matter of asking people on the right day if they have their coffee. And so is part of the problem just that some of the processes need to be shored up, maybe not necessarily helping people navigate those processes, but just making sure they're common sense?
I'd say it's both. And by having somebody shore up those processes, I think it will help smooth, and everybody will see the issues that have come up. And I think some people, they know the issues, and it's how, I don't want to say we're going to lower standards. Yeah. I think there's some standards that we need, but we just need to make sure we're having a common sense approach, that we're not making it difficult.
Yeah.
And if there's a streamlined process, and that's what our people in economic development are looking at, and the permitting, and I hear it a lot, but then a lot of people are doing business in Des Moines. And I think even on the codes, we heard a lot when we switched codes, but now that people understand the process better, but if you're a smaller business, it's your first time into it, or a homeowner or whatever, it becomes more complicated. So we're going to continue to work on that.
Yeah. So can you go into the modification? You mentioned you were going to make some modifications. I don't know if it's too early to ask you
I would
those
say
are.
It's probably too early for me to know all the detail.
Fair.
But they are bringing some forward to the council to look at.
Right. So one of the things we talked about previously, I don't know if you mentioned this on the show or not, but it was kind of a side note, but I think it's worth pushing into, is a lot of people, especially in the state, because Des Moines really does function. You're now the mayor of Des Moines, but you also play a big part in the state, because a lot of people have to come to Des Moines for various resources, government resources. Of course, there's a state fair. What I think a lot of people don't understand is that most of that land, I think you said this, 40% of the metro of Des Moines, 40% of Des Moines doesn't really pay, is it property taxes?
Property tax, because they're nonprofits, or, the state fair is the state fair, the state complex, all the churches, the universities. So we in Des Moines, and we are the largest city of the state.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we're proud to host everyone. It's great. But for the residents, 40%, that's why I say every piece of land in Des Moines needs to be of value. To see an empty lot, I say that's opportunity. Mm-hmm. Not that we can't build it, but we've got to understand that we have a different set of circumstances than maybe the other cities around us. And so we just need to make sure that we don't have blighted property. We need to make sure that we don't have houses that are empty and boarded up, or businesses either. We need to make sure everything is productive. And it brings viability, and it brings safety to neighborhoods. It's much more than just the tax base.
Yeah. Now, can something be done? Because on the way over here, I kind of felt like I was playing Mario Kart, because I was like dodging potholes. And so if you think about like the infrastructure issues that we have right now, which I don't think are unusual to Des Moines, I think a lot of people have those, but is it unreasonable to say, hey, to go to those 40% and go to the state and go to the fairgrounds and say, hey, you guys need to do more. You're benefiting off all of this. You need to do more. Or are they already paying in some capacity?
Well, they could say, people come in and they have sales tax and things like that. And I think they probably have in the past. But again, everybody is constrained with budgets.
Yeah.
But then we will be seeing, probably because of freeze and thaw, a lot of potholes. Again, I have said too that I see that a lot of urban communities and rural communities have a lot in common, because we have older infrastructure and need to do a lot of revitalization. So we just need to all work together to figure out how we can provide all of our citizens what they need in the fairest way.
Now, is the state, because, Capitol Grounds and the fair and whoever else those 40% are they paying in some capacity? They're not. You're shaking
There are
your
some
head no.
nonprofits that do, some of the hospitals that do payment in lieu of taxes. They help pay for for some of their fire coverage that they get and police. But I believe they are the only ones.
So can the city go to those entities and say, hey, look,
sure.
It's time to pony up?
Well, we could definitely ask.
Do you plan on doing that and having sitting down, having
a
conversation?
We have some conversations on that.
Sure. So I hear that maybe a conversation is going to happen in the future on that.
I would say if it would have happened by now, it would have happened. I'm sure there's been previous conversations.
Yeah, because I live in Des Moines. I love Des Moines. I'm really glad that the fairgrounds is in the state. We have the Capitol.
That's great.
I'm really thankful for all that. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, I live here. I pay in. I think everybody should pay in. That's kind of where I go with that.
Well, we will see what we can do.
So I want to move on to DART. DART is obviously subsidized, and it is the state's only regional transit system. And right now in 2025, I think it's a $2.7 million deficit they will be facing. And so I know that they're looking at making cuts. But then the other option, or cutting routes, the other option is to raise taxes to cover that deficit. Has there been any news on that? Are we going to be making the cuts?
We're having ongoing conversations. The legislature passed last year that only cities above 200,000 could raise the franchise fee.
Right.
And we are the only city above 200,000.
Yeah.
Transportation is essential. Many people rely on it, and we're looking at every avenue that we can to help shore it up. Even with a franchise fee, it's still in 3 years, we're still facing issues. So my thing is we need to find a mechanism to make it more sustainable.
Yeah.
And I know they have tried for a number of years to find alternative funding. Our state, I think, might be one of the few states that does not contribute. And so we just need to look at what we can do for the people that do absolutely need it. So I think there's some creative ways that, whether we do more on-call, how do we structure it? Again, you can't get more routes till you get more riders. You can't get more riders. So it's a catch-22. But for some people, it's much essential. We know the importance of it, and we're working through it.
Yeah, and you're right. You can't get more right. And that's part of the challenge is you look at and this is anecdotal. I was trying to find the data for this. Maybe you probably have it somewhere, but just anecdotally, I don't think in the last several years I've ever seen a bus more than 20% full. They're just empty all the time. And I do know there are some routes that are more popular than others. And so in my mind, I'm like, DART, like I'm not like a believer in or against public transit. I'm just completely neutral on the issue. I know people need it. But at the same time, I'm like, if you guys don't have great utilization, how can we justify giving you more resources for something that isn't, people aren't using? In business, we call that bad product market fit. If you don't have a product market fit, you can throw billions of dollars at it. It's not going to change anything. So like one of the challenges, is the challenge just bad routing? Like a lot of the buses seem to go to the central hub and then come back. I
really don't know exactly. I do know this is not unique to Des Moines.
Right.
This is probably in most, especially with the pandemic and things. I read an article that almost everyone's facing this, whether they're even big utilizations. We're bigger cities. I think one of the things is we're a community that it's never been a priority. The routes. How you build out the communities around us too. And how do you make it more transit friendly, more density on the corridors, more? Yeah. There's things you can do, but those are long term. So we need to we're looking at every avenue on what we can do to help shore it up, but also reimagine what's going on. We've asked the complete study be done by bringing somebody in from the outside that has expertise all around the country. Is it the federal regulations that they put on, how you count, how you do all those different things, or is it how can we financially support this transit system for the people that need it?
One of the challenges, because my wife, as you know, used to work at North High School for Des Moines Public School System, And one of the, I mean, I don't know if it was a free pass. Teachers got like a free pass or
Right, you
something
do.
like that.
A lot of companies have joined
Yeah.
in where they give a pass to ride, but if you can't get to where you need to,
And that was the challenge, is that for her, I think it was from our house, it was under 10-minute commute. It was just ridiculously fast because we live in the community she
Right.
worked. And she was like, oh, I got this free DART pass. It'd be great not to have to park. That'd be really nice. So she looked into it, and the overall distance from door to door would have been almost an hour. And she can get there in under 10 minutes, usually like maybe 5 to 7 minutes on a good day. And it would take her commute to an hour because the routes would go from, where we live on the east side all the way downtown and then back up to north. And contrast that with, again, not a fair comparison, but contrast that with like Paris, for example. We were just there and it's just all point to point and way more direct. And in Paris, we all like preferred public transit. Because you try to take a car, that's going to triple your time easily. And Paris is a big city, like not by population's pretty big, but it just sprawls. It's so big. And we could get anywhere in under 20 minutes. I could get anywhere in Paris, huge city, faster than I could get anywhere in Des Moines using their public transit system. So I imagine if, the system was useful like that, if I could get out to Jordan Creek really quickly or get out to downtown really quickly or get up to the Highland Park area or something, I imagine people would use it more often, but
it's just hard. I mean, European cities were built around mass transit.
I said, bad comparison.
It's Zurich. My daughter lived in Zurich, and a bus system, and it's just the difference of how Americans built out cities for cars.
Right.
So I think that's just the different, all these other cities were already developed. So I think we just need to figure out a system that works because there's definitely people that need it, and hopefully more people will take it.
Right.
I mean, the goal is to get people out of their cars and utilize more mass transit, but it's a hard one to solve.
So the other challenge I know that you've spoken about in the past is housing. Because again, Des Moines is at yet another delicate balance area where housing is becoming less affordable for many people. But at the same time, Des Moines doesn't have like the 4-bedroom, 3-bath that some families want. And so do you allow tiny housing, like tiny homes in more areas to make up for that, to make a class of house that's more affordable for people? Or do you try to put like square footage limits in certain areas? I know that both these topics have been at the city council. Is there room for both, like tiny houses and larger homes?
I think there are, and that's why I've said throughout is that we need a balance of housing in Des Moines. Affordable housing, I don't know if you can build it. I don't know if you can truly build it without some type of subsidy. You look at even a Habitat, what they have to buy down. The cost of the wages haven't kept up with the cost of housing in the long run, because that's why I think we have a shortfall. I think we have a lot of, you live on the east side with me, and there's a lot of affordable housing, in our area.
Oh, yeah.
Now, is it a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house? No.
Right.
But then if you want affordability and, good quality homes, I think Des Moines has quite a few of them. They might be smaller, but that, how big do you need, I guess.
Right, right.
So I think that we just need a good mix. I mean, I think with any community, I think you need a balance of housing. And I think there's some creative things again, when you look at areas along the corridors, can we do more row houses, so you can consolidate and build in the amenities. We have 2 programs, the Invest DSM, that's in 4 targeted neighborhoods, where in empty lots we're teaming with we're building some, we're teaming with Home Inc. or Habitat and building homes, and areas that we're putting some of the bigger homes, but also some smaller homes. So I think it depends on the lot size and what you're going to do. So I think, again, Des Moines offers a variety of housing, a variety of sizes, and we just need to make sure that the housing that we have is kept in good stock, and that's why we have improving our neighborhood. We're on the outside envelope of the house, where you have loans and grants that you can get for doing roofs, windows, siding.
Is that through like the NFC, Neighborhood
Well,
Finance
not even that's
Corporation?
a separate, there is NFC too that does a great job. But improving our neighborhoods is teaming within NFC and different organizations. So especially for a senior that's like on a fixed income, they want to stay in their home. but they need a new roof, but they can't afford that new roof.
Right.
So they can apply. And we had, I think, over 300 applications, and we have put in $3.5 million into it, and we'll continue to do, because it's important. Not only do we have affordable housing, we want to keep the stock that we have in good condition.
Yeah.
And provide opportunities for, especially, I said, for people who can't afford to do the repairs but want to stay in their home, and even, to help them make their home safer, more energy efficient if you put in new windows, new siding, and those kind of things. And then work with the other agencies to help maybe if they needed some interior work. But again, to keep not only what we have, that I think we have a lot of affordability, but also to keep it in good stock.
I know that previously there were, and the city council did ease these back, but previously there were discussions around like minimum square footage for new homes. And then also, we've discussed this too. And then like mandatory garages and stuff like that. Do we get rid of those going into the future so that people can choose to build what they want to build? Or is there a reason that those minimums are still in place?
Well, I think the minimums are there, but it depends on what size of the lot. And it depends. You can get variances. So I'd rather have the minimum be there, but we can vary depending on the size of the lot. I know that in some cases, even in Invest DSM, we've bought a lot and we've broken it into 2 lots because it was a bigger lot. So again, putting double the amount of homes, getting more density in. So I think that the garage issue, I will say, when junk and debris is the number one reason our inspection people get called.
Don't disagree at all. Yeah, I don't
garage
disagree.
Is pretty important. Does it have to be a 2-car? No, maybe. I mean, I think we do have variances that they can do. So these are not standards, I think, that are any different than any other community around us.
Yeah. You also, I want to go back to a little bit what you said earlier. You mentioned that whenever you see empty lots and whenever you see like vacant buildings, you see opportunity. But what can a city council, what can a mayor actually do? I mean, unless you're planning on going down there with a sign and saying for lease and like come move in, like what can our city council actually do to encourage development in those areas? And obviously the parking lots are owned by someone, so how are we going to encourage someone to break that up and put a building there, right?
Well, I think that's where the economic development department, you give them, like I said, we want to roll out the red carpet. You aggressively go out and recruit and try to find people to come in. And I know that just my comments that were in like business record, I had a luncheon they invited me to on commercial real estate people, and it was highly attended. We just need to say we want to work with you and be positive about what can be done, because there is opportunity in Des Moines. We still have over 200,000 people here, and you look at the areas on the Grays Station, you look at Market District, people believe in Des Moines. And even the Market District used to be where all the city infrastructure, we had all of our public works there. So that's all non-taxable land that will be coming on eventually at some point, tax roll. So again, looking at creative ways. It's a great area off of the East Village. And even the other is just off of downtown. So I think we still have a great opportunity, but we've got to be aggressive in how we go out and recruit and get more businesses coming here.
What does recruiting look like? Like you go to I don't even know who you'd go to, but you go and you say you should locate in Des Moines. You absolutely should move in. Here's some great properties. I would love to facilitate the conversation with this agent. They're great. What do they ask for usually? Do they ask for tax? Like, I want a tax write-off if we're going to come in.
A lot of people, if you're building new, want TIF, or they need some help to get it through. But as those buildings that we talk about roll off, that brings great value and more taxability that maybe never would have happened.
Right.
So I think that we have to, again, just say we have building stock. Even the office buildings are already built. To go build something new now is very expensive. So come look at what we have.
Is the city of Des Moines right now offering tax incentives?
Well, there's different
I'm not saying you should go either way, by the way. People know me at this point that I'm not trying to lead the conversation, but are we actively shopping around tax incentives right now? Or are we kind of saying, hey, city of Des Moines has great population. There's a lot of revenue to be made here. Come in, but we're not going to offer you incentives right now.
No, I think it's more, what is the project you're doing? It's by project, and our economic development can help people through. It's one thing if you're building up brand new or if you're coming in to take over. So every project is different. I'm not saying that we have an incentive for everybody, but we have opportunity because we have buildings that are already built. They're built out probably in really good condition. And so if you're looking for an office space, there is space available. So it's just encouraging people to rethink of coming back downtown.
So what I'm hearing then is, and again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm hearing is if there are buildings that are a little bit more dilapidated or need help, and someone's kind of like, that's a lot of risk for me to take on. You're saying the city of Des Moines I'm not saying will, but the city of Des Moines is willing to have that conversation with, okay, we understand this is a little bit higher of a risk. What is it going to take on our end to get you to move into that, fix that thing up, and revitalize that community?
Right. And it's, or if you're taking the empty parking lot and you need to build an apartment building, or you want to build townhouses or whatever, then we need to look at that based on new versus what, old, and what is it that needs to be done. Yeah,
absolutely. Connie, how do people keep in touch with your office now that you're mayor? Is there anything you're changing? Any way to get access and keep in touch with what you guys are up to? Just go to the website. What's the easiest way to stay in touch?
Just to the city website. My email is out there. It's basically the same email as before. My number is out there. And like I said, I'm trying to get set up some listening sessions to go out to the community. And, I go out. I've always gone out to neighborhood meetings, but to go out maybe to groups that maybe, have their own group that would like to hear from the mayor, to hear what's going on. Especially some of our ethnic communities where, some of it's a language barrier. So how can we go out and understand their needs and how we can make living in Des Moines even better for them? And we're trying to get those set up now. So to go out on the road, I guess, and really listen. But sometimes we have a lot of things that we do, but it's just finding out what's happening in Des Moines. Like within our Park and Rec department, they have some tremendous opportunities for people, not only for young people or even all ages, to get involved in the Park and Rec system, and also looking for volunteers to help with the greenhouse. We were just their awards for people that volunteered, and we have hundreds of volunteers at their greenhouse. We have people out in their parks. And there's other things that people can do to be part of the city and really get to know what's going on in the city. And, we are the capital city. We have great amenities in the city, and we just need people to take advantage of what is here to offer.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, again, congratulations. Mayor Connie Boesen, Mayor of Des Moines. Really appreciate you coming on the Iowa Podcast again. It's good to have you back in the studio.
Well, I thank you. It's good to see you again, and hopefully we are off to a great year.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.